Welcome to Lifeline for Leaders, a podcast created to strengthen and connect those serving in pregnancy care clinics and pro-life ministries. I'm Linda Thomas.
And I'm Kirk Thomas. Each week we sit down with leaders, ministry partners, authors, and experts who shape the pro-life landscape, sharing practical insights you can use right away and inspiring stories that remind you you're not walking this journey alone.
Our mission is to help you serve with confidence and resilience. This is your community, your support, your lifeline.
Let me start off with a prayer to start this episode. God, thank you for this platform, Lord, and thank you for our guests, Kirk and Jenn. May our conversation be blessing to you, and may it be inspirational and educational for all those who listen to it. We pray these wonderful things in your name. Amen.
All
right.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
It is great to be back.
Yes.
So as we continue our discussion on Saving Samaria, this is the third of 4 in our series. We're joined by Kirk and Jenn Walden. They co-authored this amazing book, Saving Samaria, 7 Jesus Strategies for Healing a Broken Culture. In today's conversation, we're exploring how Jesus calls us to engage a divided and emotionally charged world with both conviction and compassion, especially when the truth matters and relationships feel fragile. Together, we'll look at what it means to resist harsh words and actions and why the way we show up can matter just as much as what we believe.
Now, we're going to look at the first strategy number 5, which is fruit, not fire. Jenn, you describe yourself in Saving Samaria as a former flamethrower.
Yes.
What do you mean by that, Jenn?
This girl is on fire.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is hard. Yeah, I think Kirk would call me passionate, and when I believe in something or I have a conviction, I can get very passionate about it. And there's good in that, but I think that in the Lord, He needs us to learn to have self-control and the other fruits of the Spirit. And when we want to make a difference in the lives of people and our culture, fire can seem very holy to us. And there have been many times in my life in the past when I thought fire was holy because that is not true. What you're saying isn't correct. You are in sin. And that passion, it can come from a heart of wanting to see good for someone. But it can also end up being very destructive. And that has been one of the biggest lessons of my life. And one I'm still seeking to refine through the Lord's fire. He can refine us with fire, but I don't feel like I get the right anymore to do that to another person.
And I love that distinction that you made in the book, because I think a lot of us, including myself, can definitely identify with that fiery approach. I came from, a culture really where, criticism was just part of that's how you learned. And so I don't think you're alone in that. So, but you're growing in that. And I think you're being so transparent in telling your story about that is really helpful to a lot of us that's a work in progress. But kind of to dive in a little deeper, what did it actually feel like for you when you were in that season where you didn't realize that the fiery approach wasn't the next one or the best one? And then what did that kind of produce for the recipient of your fire?
Yeah, so I think there's just losing our temper and we're just angry. But I think what I kind of am relating to in the book and my own story is when you have what you're feeling like a spiritual fire, and it can feel like the right thing to do. And it can feel like you're being, I guess in a word, righteous, a righteous sort of judgment that you are, I need to use the word unleashing, but it would feel at times if I was saying something to someone that I felt needed to hear my words, and I was afraid for them if they didn't hear my words, that could feel very righteous. It could feel like God is in this moment with me because he wants you to be okay. He wants you to stop making the decisions you're making. But as I relay in the book, like that ends up creating, some frayed, burned people in the end. And it is one of the biggest light bulb moments for me to realize, like, I am called to fruit. It doesn't mean I don't speak truth to someone. It doesn't mean I don't say hard things sometimes, but if I'm not saying it with fruit as like what I'm really producing there, I feel like for me, I've realized that I've harmed people. I've hurt people. It hasn't helped. And that's just been my experience.
Right. And you make the point that communication ceases. Effective communication definitely ceases. So kind of going back to previous episodes when we talked about meeting people where they are, the harsh words are not going to foster that kind of communication. So.
Yeah, and it's hard to plant seeds in the ashes that you create. So
Yeah.
Very well said.
And I like how you talk about the righteous anger, because that's exactly what we talk about, what Luke is writing about in that moment when Jesus is rejected by the Samaritan village, and James and John go, "Hey, do you want us to call down fire on the village and consume them?" Well, this was a righteous anger. They're standing up for Jesus. They know he's the Messiah and he's been rejected, and I get it. You have just rejected Jesus, and by golly, you're gonna figure out what happens when you do something like that. And so I get where they're coming from. And Jesus says, that's not our thing. That's not the spirit that we're of here. He just goes on to another village. And I think we talk about it. I think there's a moment where a lot of people might have looked at Jesus and go, well, he's just a squish. He's just trying to, I don't know what they're going to say, but it's not good. He gets canceled by a lot of people for not using that moment to call that Samaritan village out for rejecting him. And that's hard for me because I want to see right here on this earth, I want to see some people pay for what they've done. That's my gut feeling, not my spiritual feeling. Jesus says, let's bring fruit if we want to bring about real change.
And the strategy 5 in the context of the book, you give a lot of examples of how Jesus just spoke in kindness, did what wasn't expected of him at times. He just kind of turned the other cheek, I guess. And so that was super helpful. And Jen, was there something that helped you maybe realize a specific event or something that helped you realize that the fiery approach wasn't working for you?
I think a lot of it was, and as we experience things in life, and I talk about what for me were like just miracles of God's love to me. And I look back and I think, what drew me to him? And ultimately it was his love and grace and mercy, not the fire, not the fear of him, but it was his drawing me to him. And, I thought about this too. One time I had a chance to speak to a ladies group at a church, and we were talking about fruit. And I thought about how I would never think that I'm going to hand somebody a piece of rotten fruit and say, here, enjoy this. Don't you want some of this fruit I have? That we know, like, that just doesn't even make sense in the natural world. But spiritually, we do that. We're going to hand somebody rotten fruit and then think that's going to attract them to the gospel and to Jesus. But I just don't think that's the good news. It's not rotten. It's beautiful and lovely. And I'm just so thankful for a new opportunity to share that with the world around me.
Well, we are too. And it's interesting how the lens that you look at things through, because you can see the same situations described in the book one way, and then you can see them another way and be very confident that your way, the way you're seeing them, is the only way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So Kirk,
you had mentioned about why do you think people choose fire over fruit today?
I can tell you why I want to choose fire. Because I want to see those people who oppose me, and especially in the life movement, I want to see those people who oppose me defeated, and I want our side to win. I mean, there's no question about that. And I think what I'm missing here is these are people that we need to win, not defeat. We need to win. We need to see those people who are doing things that I can't imagine and advocating for them. We need to win those people. And that's the thing that gets me. But I want my side to win the next election. I want my side to win in a debate. And there's nothing wrong with debate. And every election I vote at least 4 times. Don't tell everybody. No, I'm kidding. But I kid about that. But that's the thing, is I want my side to win. And I'm taking away an opportunity when I don't introduce fruit into the equation. I'm taking away opportunities to win people who are really, they know not what they do a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand those who say, well, Jesus flipped tables too. Well, yes, he did, in a very specific circumstance that takes a little bit to explain, but in a very specific circumstance, he did flip tables. But the trend was always fruit. And I think that's why I have to lean on, even though I don't feel like it a lot of times.
Well, and we're an impatient society, impatient culture, and fruit takes a little bit more time.
Yeah. It
As
definitely,
seedlings
you
to
got to
develop,
plant it, nurture
Yep.
it. Yeah,
Mhm.
the whole thing.
Right.
I
Exactly.
think when it comes to like people we really care about, that we have personal relationships, I think a lot of that can come from fear. And
Yeah.
it's weird. It's like, I'm afraid for my child, so I'm going to let them know, what they're doing is, it's not working. It's bad, and I think I talk about that in the book for myself. It's like, I think a lot of my fire comes from fear, and perfect love cast out all fear,
Yeah,
So
yeah, you do talk about how it comes from love, and maybe if your children in this example see the passion you have there, or the louder you speak, the better they're going to hear
yeah.
you. It's again something I think we all experience at least. We're going to move on from the 6th or the 5th strategy, again, fruit, not fire, and go on to wear compassion. Kirk, this one's for you. You are very transparent, as you both are in the book, and in one part of it, again, in the strategy 6 portion or part of it, you talk about at 34 years old, you seem to have everything running along on all cylinders, your work, your future, your sense of security, your family, everything, until something unexpected happened and upended that comfort. If you feel like sharing today, please take us into that season and how it changed you.
Well, that's interesting that I only started sharing this story because of Jen. And she said, you've got to share this story. And there I was married with 3 children, 3, 5, and 7. And their mother, who I was married to at the time, decided to leave and decided to move on to other things. And so I was left alone as a single dad. And it's an interesting thing, because that's one of the things that in Christianity is a big one when you talk about a marriage ending. And it should be, because God hates divorce and so do I. But here I was alone as a single dad, and seeing the people that had been around me surround me during that time and build us back up to walk us through this. The guys I'd known for years, we go to lunch and hang out, and they would just allow me to just vent. And then even the ladies in my church who brought us meals 3 nights a week until I could kind of get on my feet and figure it out for myself. Even a class I was teaching at church, a married adult class, I was stepping out of that class, and they came to me and they said, nope, we need you to keep teaching. I'm like, you really don't need me right now. I'm not the picture of who needs to be teaching this, but they gave me an opportunity. And I don't know if they got any great lessons, but they told a broken man that he still had value. And over that time, seeing the compassion of people who would not let go of me. My pastor was pretty funny. He just called me Job whenever I walked in to church. He said, "Oh, Job's here." And it wasn't that bad, but he understood I was going through a tough time, and he just stuck with me, and everybody did. And seeing that compassion really changed me in the life community that we're involved in here, because I began to see people differently than I had seen before. before this happened to me, I could tell you I was 100% pro-life and all these things, and I could debate or whatever I needed to do. But my compassion quotient grew during this time because I saw broken people and I was a broken person. I was able to see that a little bit better. So it changed me. And of course, I met Jennifer 9 years later, and it's kind of amazing what God does. He builds somebody back up, and here we met, and now we've got 2 more children who are just a blast and can't believe what life would be like without them. So, and it all started with the compassion of people around me who would not let me drop through the cracks.
And you say that compassion lifts people from the rubble, that this is the good news. And you even pose the question, and again, this is taken straight from your book. What if the defining mark of the church isn't our knowledge, but our compassion?
Yeah. I really think about that. And as we outline in the book, we have amazing compassion in the church. If you look at the church, we're the leaders in adoption. We're the leaders in foster care. If there's a disaster, we're the first on the ground, and we're so compassionate. This is not a church needs to do better, but at the same time, what would happen, as you say, or as you read, what would happen if anybody who looked at one of us in faith said, I don't know everything about what they believe and stuff, but I do know this. If I ever needed anything, those people would be there. And I want to be more like them. Boy, doesn't that open amazing doors for us?
Yeah. And that, just remembering from the book how you led us through, the pastor I believe it was the pastor came to you and said you needed a vacation, and
Yes.
You said, well, I'm okay. But no, we really want to take care of you to go to a vacation. And then all the different things that it seemed like Satan tried to put obstacles in your way,
Yeah.
and God was able to put the people in your life that were able to overcome those obstacles. Like I think there was a couple that helped you get a ride down to the vacation spot that was actually trained in the ministry at your church. Is that what I remember? Yes.
Our car broke down on the way down, and I was stuck on the side of the road, and this couple drives up, and they were going down to Gulf Shores, Alabama, because that's where they lived. And they picked me and the 3 up and took us down there. And of course, I'm a real smart dad, 2 strangers, and I just jump in the car with them with my children. But it was great. And yes, he had been through, he and his wife went through a pregnancy center with an unexpected pregnancy before they were married. And that pregnancy center helped them. I got to hear their story, and he ended up becoming a children's pastor, and he was mentored by the very church that sent us on that vacation. And I'm like, okay, God, if there's ever a moment when I struggle with unbelief, I will always remember that story. And writing that in the book is my stone of remembrance, I guess.
Yeah.
And never forget that God, even when you don't see him, and you can't see him in the trials, and we're going to face more, I know, just remember those moments when he got you on that vacation. And then I got back, and I had friends that paid for a new transmission for that car. And it's like everything was covered. So a story of compassion.
And I would love to end on that high note regarding compassion, but I do want to talk about the Samaria we live in today. Society often brands our compassion as harmful and judgmental and just in such a negative way. Why do you believe that it isn't, the answer isn't less compassion in those situations, but it's actually more compassion?
Absolutely. You want to take that one?
I think the world is offering a false compassion, and it's very deceiving. But I think that a compassion grounded in Jesus, grounded in fruit, is the compassion our world needs. It's the compassion that they will recognize, and we have to just keep at it. It's, he told, we were warned, it's not going to be easy, but you do it anyways. You keep doing those hard things. Even when you're labeled as being dangerous or negative and all those things, we have to continue.
And the world does that. And I even think about in pregnancy centers, what we see when somebody comes in and she says, I'm going to end this pregnancy. We work with her, we provide hope. But even if she ends that pregnancy, our doors are open for her to come back and experience post-abortion healing and recovery. And I think That's what compassion looks like. It's the compassion that says, no matter what, we will still be here. And as we do that, and this is why Jen and I are so passionate about pregnancy centers and have been ever since I started at one in 91, and she's been involved in this with me for 20 years. That compassion that we have, I believe, as we grow, as these ministries grow, and I say this to our leaders who are listening, as we grow our ministries, our compassion quotient continues to grow as well. And as it does, the world is beginning to take notice more and more and more. And I believe we can flip this culture upside down. This is like we said earlier in one of the earlier podcasts, this world is ripe for awakening, and our compassion can help fuel that. So we're excited about it. I mean, I just can't wait to see what happens next.
And it's such a hopeful way to end this episode. And thank you for the reminder that there is hope. We greatly appreciate that, greatly need that. So in this episode, we talked about what it means to engage with conviction and compassion in a world that often feels divided and emotionally charged. If you're feeling tired or misunderstood, you're not alone, and you're not doing it wrong. Jesus never asked his followers to withdraw when compassion became costly. He asked them to lean in. And in our final episode with Jen and Kirk, we'll turn our attention inward to what sustain us when the work is costly and the fruit is slow. And if you'd like to take a deeper dive into Saving Samaria, 7 Jesus Strategies for Healing a Broken Culture by Kirk and Jenn Walden, look for your copy on Amazon or savingsamaria.com.
Thanks for joining us today on Lifeline for Leaders. If today's episode was meaningful, feel free to share it with someone who might benefit. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a conversation.
Remember, you don't have to walk this mission alone. We're honored to walk alongside you.
See you next time.